Well, the book that I've written, Extraordinary Ordinary People, is really a book about my parents. And as I was coming to the end of my time in Washington, the last 8 years, and deciding what I would write, I of course thought I would write a foreign policy book, and I will indeed do that. But the more that I thought about it, the more I was drawn to trying to explain where I came from. People often ask me, how did you become who you are? And I say, you had to know John and Angelina Rice. And so this is a chance to get to know John and Angelina Rice, their passion for education, the way that they gave me both unconditional love and high expectations, and the little community that we grew up in, that I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, deep in the times of segregation, but really with still a sense that though I couldn't have a hamburger at Woolworth's lunch counter, I could be President of the United States if I wanted to be. In writing the book, I tried to go to several sources to understand who my parents had been, and indeed who my grandparents had been. My family we were not great record keepers. We had a couple of family Bibles, that helped. But I really decided to rely on interviews with people who had known my parents and to a certain extent my grandparents. And it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know them through the eyes of people that they'd had a real impact on. And so I had interviews with my parents' colleagues from when they were teachers, their students that they touched along the way. And for me, it brought my parents into such sharp relief and such vibrancy. I knew these stories rather vaguely about them, about their educational evangelism, about how my father had gone door to door behind his church in the government project to say to parents, you know, your daughter's smart, she really ought to go to college. And then to convince a parent who'd never been close to a college to send that girl off to school. So it was a tough research project because there weren't very many documents, as I'm used to dealing with documents as an academic, but there were an awful lot of people who knew my parents well. As I wrote the book, I was surprised about the depth of my parents' experiences and how many people they touched. I was a little surprised that my father, who really was a people person, he just attracted people, but that he had done that in so many different contexts was surprising for me. He had done it first in Birmingham, where he was a Presbyterian minister and had a youth fellowship that was known around the city for where kids went to both get an education and to maybe even have a dance, because he was a Presbyterian, he wasn't a Baptist, so they could dance at the church. He also then went on to Stillman College in Tuscaloosa. Again, he was a magnet for people. Then to the University of Denver. He was a magnet for students. And finally, after my mother died, he moved to California near me at Stanford. And again, he built a life around young people. And so the depth of his experience and the reach of his impact on people was somewhat surprising to me. I think I was a little surprised to learn how really sharp-tongued my mother was. My mother was a wonderful lady. She was a musician and she was elegant, but boy, she could stand up for herself. And sometimes when I learned about that, I was a little bit surprised. That wasn't quite the mother that I knew. So in a book like this, your parents come into a sharper focus for you, and you get to see them through the eyes of others. And that's very exciting for me. The young adult version of Extraordinary Ordinary People will be a little bit condensed, and it will focus perhaps more a little bit on some of the relationship with my parents that might help kids to see their own relationship with their parents through mine. I hope it'll also give them an opportunity to see how my parents gave me every chance in the world, but that I had to work hard and I had to take advantage of those chances, and I think that's a message also that will come through in the young adult version. But I'm excited to think that young people will want to read this book. When I was out as Secretary of State, I found that it was very often the 12 or 13 or 14-year-olds who came up to me and said, I want to do what you did. Maybe this will give them a little bit of a window on how one prepares for that kind of life. I don't know how people will see this book in understanding who I am as a public figure. But I've been asked so many times, how did you become who you are? And usually people mean, how did you become Secretary of State, or how did you become National Security Advisor? But I think what this book shows is how I became the person that I am, not the public figure, but the person that I am, how I came to think about the world in the way that I do, how I came to navigate the shoals of difficulty wherever they might come from, how I came to care about certain issues and to pursue them all of my life. And so whatever people think about me as a public figure, I hope they'll know Condoleezza Rice, the person, just a little bit better after this book. I tend to love books that are about real people. I love biography. And so some of the books that I've read that have really inspired me are, for instance, biographies of the Founding Fathers, because they remind me that perhaps the United States of America should never have even come into being when you think about the trials and tribulations of that period. So the biography of Alexander Hamilton, the great biographies of Thomas Jefferson, I love those. I'm also a great fan of the biographies that written by my friend Walter Isaacson, who wrote a wonderful biography of Einstein, a wonderful biography of Ben Franklin. It probably goes back to my early childhood when I wasn't as attracted to reading as my parents would have liked. And so they kept trying things. And finally, they handed me a biography of the great composers. And then I was taken. And that love of biography and nonfiction has remained. I do love some fiction. I'm a great fan of John Grisham. I'm a great fan of Scott Turow. Generally, anything that has to do with the legal profession, I enjoy reading. The book is a part of a group of 3 books. One is Extraordinary Ordinary People, the family memoir, and then the second book to be released will be the young people's version of Extraordinary Ordinary People. And then I am working on, and hope to finish within several months, the book that is the foreign policy memoir about the last 8 years. I had the opportunity to be in government on 11/9 when the Berlin Wall fell, when I was in the administration of George H.W. Bush, the end of a great historical epoch. And then I was in the White House on September 11th, the beginning of another great historical epoch. And so that book will really take us from September 11th and the changing view of what constituted security, I think the vulnerability that all Americans felt, to the decisions that we took over that 8 years. I've often said that if you were in a position of authority on September 11th, every day after was September 12th. And I hope to give people a sense of that. So there are other books coming. I hope that readers of Extraordinary Ordinary People will understand a couple of things about my own experience that perhaps can help them and inspire them. First, that one is very fortunate to have great parents. But even if you don't have great parents, you need to have people who care about you and who will mentor you. And one of the most important things in life is to find those people, because nobody gets to where they are on their own. That's a myth. You need people who will help you and take an interest in you. Secondly, the value of education. Whatever your circumstances, being educated gives you a chance to transform yourself into somebody that you might otherwise not be. My parents understood that. My grandparents understood that. And so the transformative value of education is another message of this book. And finally, this is a book about people who understood that even if you couldn't control your circumstances, you could control your response to your circumstance. And therefore, they never allowed us, the kids of Birmingham, to feel like victims. It's a horrible thing to think yourself a victim. Whatever your circumstances, you can establish some control over them. You can, through faith and family and those who care about you, find a way out, because the great American dream really is that you can come from humble circumstances and you can do great things.